right, hello and welcome to the OnStage Colorado podcast. Once again, I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca.
Yeah, and on this episode of the show, we'll be, as usual, breaking down some of the things we've seen recently, talking through some theater news and arts news, sharing our top 10 Colorado headliners, shows we think you might want to check out. And then I'll share a conversation I had with Scenic designer Brian Mallgrave, whose name is often mentioned on this show. Right, Toni?
Absolutely. He's a favorite Scenic designer of the podcast for sure. And that's because he does consistently impressive work on both a large scale, like his work over at the Arvada Center, as well as on smaller scale shows in community theaters.
Yep. Absolutely. And really fun conversation with him talking about the craft and how he approaches scenic design and, some of the challenges and, the way things have changed over the years, things like that. So a lot of fun.
So stick around for that conversation a little later in the podcast. But first, let's turn to what we've seen since our last episode. Alex, I know I've been seeing you at the same theaters recently. Let's kick us off. What have you seen?
Yeah, so we were both at Assassins at Miners Alley on Sunday. We were at the Sunday matinee, and then we were at Sweet and Lucky, which is the Denver Center's off-center production on Friday.
That was Saturday night. It's opening. And
then I also caught last week on Thursday Elizabeth I in her own words at Betsy. So plenty to talk about there. So Assassins is like, as you always like to point out, I'm not a big Sondheim fan, and this didn't change my opinion of Sondheim, and not because I thought it was a good production. I thought, it was Warshall directed this, a really good cast, really interesting, depiction of all these presidential assassins and the way, actually the story was pretty interesting. I can't get past the music. Is like, for one thing, I thought all the songs were fairly forgettable. I couldn't name any of them after the show, and they're also this discordant. I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe I'm a Philistine about this kind of music, but I just don't find it enjoyable.
And I think that the kind of dissonant, dark quality of the music, which was particularly amplified by music director David Nels, who was center throughout the show, and he was playing on this like tiny piano that really added to that dissonant feel. I think that works for this production, in which you're supposed to always feel kind of uncomfortable and like things don't resolve quite how you want them to. But I can also understand why musically it's maybe not the most fun to listen to compared to something like Waitress.
Yeah. If there ever was a place for that kind of sort of unsettling music, it's here, because they're all basically 9 disturbed personalities of various kinds, and it's really interesting the way they stumble into each other's timelines. You've got John Wilkes Booth trying to talk Lee Harvey Oswald into shooting Kennedy and stuff like that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I thought this production was very well done by Warren and the team at Miners Alley. Lots of really strong performances across the board. You mentioned Drew as John Wilkes Booth already. He was a really strong leading performance, kind of this archetype of what an American assassin could look like. Julia Toby is the proprietor, this very devil-like figure who is clearly kind of manipulating all of these people here.
Handing out guns at the top of the show.
Literally. And then I thought there was kind of fittingly paralleled at the end. Warren there's a very striking image at the very end of the play in which the audience is then handed the gun. Everybody in the show then hands it to them, which I thought was kind of really fascinating, and kind of iterates this idea that's been repeated throughout the show, that anyone could be this figure if they're just pushed far enough. And you're like, that's a really scary, chilling message, but it rings really true in our time.
Yeah. Or if you just really want to be a headline. There was definitely some talk about like, you're a nobody, shoot a president and you'll be remembered for all time. Remember Brutus? Yeah, we're still talking about him. Yeah. And also really great stagecraft. The set by Tina Anderson was really cool. It had the presidents in silhouette in these sort of light up posters that they would shoot at when the time came. That was really cool. And it had this very sort of dirty circus feel to it. Like all the costumes were dirty and tattered and just kind of icky.
Absolutely. And I thought that the choice of having this tattered American flag hang from the backdrop that characters would enter in out of just really added to this really eerie tone. And it told you so much about this world that we were entering that was kind of already broken and falling apart at the seams. Just really impressive visual storytelling from the scenic design.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Alice Caitlin reviewed it for us. I haven't posted a review yet, but she was a little harder on it. She didn't think it was as strong a production as others she'd seen of it. But that's why we have different opinions. So another one we saw. So Sweet and Lucky Echo was, I think, you and I were both a little disappointed because we'd both done stories. We had a podcast. We had Charlie Miller from Off Center on here last week to talk about it, and it just didn't quite meet up to. I wasn't sure what I was expecting entirely, but I thought it was going to be bigger than it was.
Definitely, you feel the warehouse setting in this one. It's not really able to effectively convince you that you're anywhere else outside of this one singular room. The script feels very stuck and stagnant. The actors are kind of repeating each other to create this echo effect throughout, which is kind of cool when it's first introduced, but then becomes really stifling because it means the actors have to be very fixed. And so it doesn't allow for a lot of moments of genuine spontaneity or interactivity, even though the piece itself keeps telling you that your memories of grief matter. It refuses to allow that to be true by nature of how the story is structured. And there's just then a lot of dead space that in which actors are just kind of meandering around this warehouse set. And I just never felt that the piece had anything larger to say about its themes beyond grief and memory are connected, which, if you're going to bring up this kind of sensitive subject of grief and make me think about people whom I've lost, you better have something more interesting, some more catharsis to do. Otherwise, you're just going to leave me bummed out, which is what the show did.
Yeah, I think immersive theater is one of the things you don't want to do is leave the audience wondering what's going on and why they're there. And I think there were some times where you could see people kind of looking at each other like, "What's this?" And it was really interesting for me. It was very personal because in the last 5 years, I've done this 3 times with both with 2 family members and a friend's mother who had passed and went through all of their stuff, which is kind of what this is about. And there's a whole
Yeah,
lot more
that's
to that.
definitely the framing device for the piece is that unboxing.
Yeah, and like when I was going through that, there was a real mix of emotions. Some of it was even anger, like why did they leave all this shit for us to clean up? Why didn't they take
Hmm.
care? And they didn't really touch on that. And there was just an ungodly number of boxes, that was ostensibly, I guess, in this deceased couple's home. And so a lot of that just wasn't touched on. It just didn't feel like the story was explored nearly as much as it could have, or that I was thinking, if you had everybody's probably gone through these things, or not everybody, but a lot of people. You could have had some interesting conversations sparked among the audience members about, this dumb stuff that, they had to deal with that, I don't know. I just felt like there's, like I said, in my review, a lot of cards were left on the table.
Absolutely, yeah. I wrote in my review that's coming out in Westward soon, hopefully by the time this is up, but I know that it may be a day or so after. I wrote that the universal is reached through the specific. Sweet and Lucky Echo tries to start universal and ends up with nothing. It's just too vague and unspecific for its own good. You just you want something kind of personal or tangible to kind of grasp onto, but instead it just feels so emotionally repressed that it's kind of hard to get into.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that I'm sure this is a fairly long run. I think they're going to be there for 3 or 4 months. So I'm sure it will evolve quite a bit along the way and they'll find some of their beats and grooves as they go. But, unless they're actually changing the story, it's going to have some of those limitations. So, um,
Mhm.
yeah. And then Elizabeth I, in her own words, is Tammy Meningini at Betsy. This is a one-woman show about Elizabeth I. And really, really cool performance. I would say there are definitely some people who would probably go to that and think, oh my God, kill me now because, if you don't have any interest in English history, it would just be hard to. But I do, and I think anybody going to that just from the title, it's not like they don't know what it's going to be. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think Tammy does a fantastic job, and she's done this show before. She did it at Edinburgh Fringe. She's been doing it for a couple of years, and really really cool. Show about England's probably most famous and often described as most successful or accomplished monarch.
Yeah, it sounds like a really polished version of the production that I saw before it headed to Edinburgh, which was already pretty good. But yeah, that's great to hear that it's continued to have a life.
Yeah, yeah. They added at some point a guitarist who I wasn't thrilled with. I mean, there were some points where he's plucking away, and I thought distracting from what Tammy was saying. And one of the little nit was that apparently Elizabeth I had terrible teeth, especially towards the end of her life, and so she was doing a lot of kind of old people mouth motions, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it just got I think she probably could have toned that back a little bit. But on that, really strong show, and they keep selling out, and they've added some more shows, so you've got some more opportunities to see it through next week if you get a chance to check it out at the Boulder Dairy Center.
Cool. In addition to the two shows we've already discussed, I also did two other things this weekend. Not exactly theater, but definitely live performance, live event kind of things. First up was I went to the Nine Inch Nails concert over at Ball Arena
Yeah.
on Friday night. This was one of my friends was in town. He's a huge Nen fan, and so he was like, "We got to go to this concert." And I didn't really know what to expect. I can't say that I know a ton of Nine Inch Nails songs myself. I'm
Me
more
neither.
familiar with their film score work,
Mm-hmm.
but the concert was so fun. Everybody there was really nice. All the punks are just really kind souls. So it was a really cool vibe in there. And then the production itself was quite elaborately produced. They had live video that was going the whole time that was kind of being integrated with visual effects throughout on these screens. They were switching stages. They had a center stage as well as the traditional kind of concert stage at the front of the crowd. It was just very technically impressive show. And Trent Reznor, he's still got those chops. He's still screaming his heart out.
Right. And you and Mac, your friend, were saying that there was a real kind of, I don't know, family vibe, or everybody was really kind and friendly, kind of almost like a fish show or something.
Literally, yeah. It was just, I didn't know what to expect. You're but everybody there was just, because I've been to some stuff at Ball Arena, and people can be a little bit finicky because it's hard to get there. They're pissed off at the bag policy or whatever on the way in. But everybody there was just in the best mood. So yeah, I can't imagine if you like Nine Inch Nails, you missed this concert. But yeah, it is a good time.
Great.
And then I also I finally got over to a Film on the Rocks, which is an event hosted at Red Rocks by Denver Film. And this was the final event of the season. It was Shrek 2 with a Shrek rave before it. And it was completely sold out. So over 9,000 people gathered at Red Rocks to watch this and participate in this rave before. I love Shrek 2. It's one of my favorite films. So this was the perfect experience to kind of go and watch this in a communal setting. I went with some friends. We dressed up as the Three Blind Mice. There were a ton of people in costumes like us, and it just was so joyous. We talked about in recent weeks how movie theaters are struggling, and it sucks to see some things in smaller and smaller audiences. But it was just so awesome to be with over 9,000 other people laughing, cheering, booing at the villains all together. You're just like, this is how movies were meant to be seen. And I think people really do want to show up for those big communal experiences if it's for the right thing.
That's fantastic. Wow. I didn't realize it was such an event, and that they would sell out Red Rocks to show essentially an old movie.
I mean, true. It's 21 years old. Shrek 2 came out in 2004. So yeah, it's not like this is a new release or this is not something that you couldn't purchase yourself. I mean, I have a DVD copy of Shrek 2. I could have stayed home and watched Shrek 2, but it hits
Yeah,
different
yeah,
when you're with
absolutely.
that many people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was going to mention another thing I did on Friday night. We took my son Andy. It was his 24th birthday, so we took him out to Nocturne, the jazz club there in Rhino. Where it's like a 3-course dinner along with they had a quintet that was really good. I'm not like a huge jazz fan, but that's the kind of jazz I like. It was really fun to get out there. I would say for what the cost is, the food was just kind of not the greatest in the world. I mean, it's pretty good, but overall, it's a really fun experience to get out there. You beware if you do go. It's like going to, I don't know, I guess like a dinner theater. You can't really talk a lot while the show's going on, but it's a cool experience.
Yeah, I know Andy's been wanting to go to that for a while. And I, what did he think? Did it live up
He
to the hype in his head?
Oh yeah, he loved it. Yeah, he thought it was fantastic. So he felt very fancy, I think he said. So all
Well, that's
right.
good.
Well, let's turn to the news. What is going on out there? We heard some big news from the Arvada Center this week.
Yeah, that's right. Big breaking news. Philip Sneed announced his retirement on Monday, August 18th, that will be effective June 30th, 2026. So it's
That's
a
a
little while
long
away,
runway.
but he exactly wanted to just give the community a heads up about what was going on and his decision to step away. He's a 40-year member of Actors Equity Association, and his career at the Arvada Center started in 1976 when he performed as for the first time as a professional actor in The Contrast. He
Wow.
then, yeah, I was like, he goes all the way back. He then acted in some other shows there. And his first foray behind the scenes at the center was when he worked as a scene shop employee in 1983. Then he spent a bunch of time in the California theater scene, returned to the Arvada Center in 2011 to direct The Lion in Winter, then Twelfth Night. And then in 2023, he was hired as the executive director, which the title was then later changed to president and CEO. And he said in the press release that leading the Arvada Center has been the greatest achievement of my working life. I am honored to have been able to play a key role in the organization during times of both crisis and opportunity. And I'm so proud that I can end my leadership career where I began my professional life in the arts almost 50 years ago.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, somehow our paths never crossed, but it's hard to argue his impact, making the Arvada Center a real powerhouse in regional theater with a long list of great shows that you can pretty much depend on if you go into the Arvada Center to see, even if you don't love the show itself. The productions are always super strong.
Absolutely. And he's definitely weathered some interesting times during his over 12 years with the organizations, including the obvious pandemic, in which even though they had to reduce budgets to 8 million during that time, it's now back up to 36%, which is a massive accomplishment. He also helped transition from a department of the city of Aurora to being an independent nonprofit. That's a pretty massive kind of undertaking to have to navigate. He grew philanthropic support, increased programming for diverse efforts, and secured a bunch of different funding for the organization that previously had not been there for it, and just formed a bunch of partnerships with organizations, including the African Leadership Group, the Rocky Mountain Indian Chamber of Commerce, and then the Autism Community Store, just to name a few. So it's clear that he's leaving a pretty big legacy over there, and there will be some pretty big shoes to fill when he's leaving. So
Yeah,
uh,
is there an heir apparent, or are they doing a big search?
this is a great question. I have no idea if there is somebody in mind over there. I don't have any special insight into that, so I won't claim it. But the press release did mention that the center would begin a search for its future president and CEO in fall 2025. This comprehensive nationwide search will be conducted by Campbell and Co. A position description and details will be available soon. So if you are an up-and-coming arts administrator who has a vision for how to lead the Arvada Center into the future, be on the lookout for this job description coming in the fall.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these search firms charge an awful lot of money to find people. It's sometimes eye popping numbers. So I'd be curious to know what they've got to pay Campbell and Company. It's a pretty good racket, I think. Looking for top people like that. So, all right. Well, what else is in the mailbag?
Well, a little bit. This next bit of news is a little bit on the sadder side. Actor and sound designer Wayne Kennedy has passed away. He died peacefully Saturday, August 16th, of pancreatic cancer at age 64, according to reporting by John Moore of the Denver Gazette. Kennedy was diagnosed in April 2024, which was just 3 months after BDT Stage closed for good, a theater where he worked very regularly, and he had just finished his run as a sound designer at the Arvada Center in Tasha Pierre and the Great Comet. Like I mentioned, he worked regularly at both BDT and the Arvada Center. He was cast in 2 shows at the DCPA, and he worked a lot over at Candlelight Dinner Theater, where he played his final role as the title character in Scrooge.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody had seen Wayne in lots of shows, particularly at BDT Stage and in other stages as well. Really well known and beloved member of the Colorado theater community. And to me, he's just so young. Pancreatic cancer is a really tough one. Apparently, a really hard one to get past. In fact, I have a friend of mine who runs an organization called Mission Cure, which is like a big philanthropy to try and find a cure. So if you're interested in helping with the search for pancreatic cancer cures, missioncure.org. But yeah, very busy stage career for sure.
Absolutely. One of his kind of seminal roles was the lead character in Fiddler on the Roof, which
Yeah.
that was the last performance I saw him in over at BDT Stage. And he's just so touching in that role, and he's such a kind figure off stage as well. It's been really beautiful to see the outpouring of support and memories that people are sharing online and discussing in person of his life and legacy. And if you want to learn more about that, I'd definitely recommend heading over to the Denver Gazette to check out John Moore's excellent obituary.
Yeah, he does a really nice job there. And by the way, John texted me. We were talking last week about getting to his stories on the Gazette can be kind of hard and paywalled. But he texted me and said his stories aren't paywalled. But since we were talking about them, I did check, and I still couldn't quite get to it. It was, I popped the URL into an incognito window, and it worked okay. But yeah, if I don't know, I'm not sure. Other than buying a subscription, but but yeah, it's definitely worth checking out on there.
Definitely. I mean, he always does a really good job with these remembrances, whether it's in the obituaries or features or in the In Memoriam compilation that he does every year at the Henry Awards.
Yep, he does, and it's so important. In my many years as a newspaper editor, it was something I always felt was really important, a really top priority. Make sure you got everything correct, and it means so much to the people left behind. Of course, the family especially.
Absolutely. Another cool bit of local news that was also first reported by John. Boulder journalist and filmmaker Joe Hill's film Match in a Haystack is playing at 3 p.m. daily through August 22nd, except for Thursday at the Sea Film Center in Denver. This documentary follows 8 members of Ukraine's innovative female contemporary dance group as they navigate being young artists when their country is at war. And the film itself is dedicated to a dancer who traded her ballet slippers for a bulletproof vest and was killed in the conflict. And just sounds like a really hard, harrowing film, but it's one that I'm planning to check out later today, actually.
Wow. Yeah. Who is Joe Hill?
He's this Boulder-born guy. He's actually has a background in the arts. He is a tap dancer turned war reporter, which is not a sentence you say out loud often, or I can say honestly ever. I've never said that out loud, but that's his background. And he initially was reporting what became Match in a Haystack as a Vice project. But after that organization went bankrupt, he got a team together and produced this film himself because he just felt that this story needed to be told.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you love to hear about a project that was so important that they just like, it's gotta happen and self-produce. Anything else?
Yeah, just wanted to quickly say Barbara Lynn Jameson, who was named to replace Greg Carpenter as the general director and CEO of Opera Colorado back in April, is now officially on the clock working here in Colorado. Quote, Denver is a robust city that deserves a robust and exciting opera company as well, she told John Moore. I'm honored to join Opera Colorado at this meaningful moment in history. And yeah, that's quite an understatement, I would say. Opera Colorado has been going through quite a few public struggles. They've announced major budget shortfalls. They've reduced their season from 3 main stage shows now down to just 2. And then also, obviously, Carpenter announced that he would be stepping down, which ushered in the company's first major leadership transition in 20 years. It's just been a really interesting time for them. But she's coming in on this pretty strong season of La Traviata and Madame Butterfly, which are 2 like big operas that are going to put butts in seats.
Yeah, for sure. Well, best of luck to Opera Colorado. Definitely, a city like Denver's got to have an opera.
Absolutely. Final bit of news from me. Just wanted to quickly say that Firehouse Theater Company in Denver is hosting a season launch party on Friday, September 12th. They invite you to come celebrate with us, meet friends and actors, hear from each of the season's directors, and see snippets from each play. Light refreshments will be served. And although there is no charge for the event, they ask that you let them know if you're coming so that they can plan accordingly. And if you do plan to go, they've got a sign up Genius page set up for that event on their Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a number of season announcements coming up. I know Aurora Fox is doing one. They also have new seats to debut that we've talked about, and some other companies. So all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we're back, we're going to go through our top 10 Colorado headliners, as well as my interview with scenic designer Brian Mallgrave. OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, whose production of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins runs August 8th through September 14th. Assassins is a provocative, Tony Award-winning musical that explores the minds and motives of history's most infamous figures who attempted to assassinate U.S. presidents, blending dark humor and compelling narratives to examine the American dream's darker side. Tickets at minersalley.com. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is a Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake. Their 2025 summer season runs from June 6th all the way to September 5th and includes Disney's Frozen, Guys and Dolls, Footloose, and Nonsense. Find tickets at rockymountainrep.com. OnStage Colorado is brought to you by Colorado Candlelight, featuring Anastasia through August 31st in Johnstown. This dazzling show transports its audience from the twilight of the Russian Empire to the euphoria of Paris in the 1920s as a brave young woman sets out to discover the mystery of her past. Tickets at coloradocandlelight.com. We're also supported by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of Cry It Out plays August 1st through the 3rd at the Denver Savoy and at the Boulder Dairy Center August 8th through 24th. Cry It Out is a smart and candid comedy about parenthood and class in America today and the hard choices all mothers make. Get tickets at betc.org. All right, we're back and ready to hit this week's Colorado headliners. So these are some of the upcoming shows we think you should know about, and in no particular order. Toni, what have you got to start?
I'm kicking us off with a musical that has already opened, but it's down in Durango and sounds pretty interesting, so wanted to recommend it. Also, apologies if there is some background noise. I've currently got all of the city's emergency vehicles outside my apartment.
You're in the big city now, so you're going to get some sirens.
That's right. But it's the musical The Spitfire Grill. It's being produced at the Durango Arts Center August 15th through the 31st. And it follows a troubled young parolee who's yearning for a fresh start, who follows her dreams to Wisconsin. It's based on a page from an old travel book. And it kind of explores the healing power of community. And it's set to a melodic folk-inspired score. So if you're in the area, definitely sounds like an intriguing production to check out.
All right. My first headliner is one we've talked about a little bit. Dixie's Never Wear a Tube Top While Riding a Mechanical Bull at the Denver Center Garner Galleria, August 20th through September 7th. We had Dixie on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to mention it, just a reminder that it's your last chance to see Dixie elongate in this iconic role she created. Sort of the opposite of Tammy Meningini in Elizabeth I. She's just this Alabama kind of hick character who's talking about all of her kind of trailer trashy life and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if folks have not listened to the interview that you do with her, they are missing out. It's really funny.
That was a lot of fun.
My next pick is it's an event. It's Summer Scream that takes place at the Lakeside Amusement Park, and this is a fundraiser for the Denver Film Group, which I mentioned earlier. They also do Film on the Rocks. They're the organizers of the Denver Film Festival, and then they run the Sea Film Center in Denver. And this is their big summer party that features an open bar, unlimited rides at the Lakeside Amusement Park, immersive experiences, and more. So if you want to support them and have a good fun time at this cultural hub, you can do that. And the theme this year is Camp Summer Scream. So something campy or something summer camp or something both are all accepted. And they've also got a film series screening going along in conjunction with this event that features really fun things like Showgirls and Moonrise Kingdom that combine those campy and summer camp elements all there. And so just a good time and a good reminder to get out and support Denver Film. They're the only nonprofit film center in the area. And as we talked about, it's great to see, as I talked about earlier, it's great to see films in big settings, and this helps them make that possible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my next headliner is The Narrators. This is from Buntport Theater. It's a more or less monthly thing they do. This one's on August 20th. So it's a live storytelling show and also a podcast. I guess they record it and you can listen to the podcast, but I think they're a little bit behind when they actually get the podcast live. But this one, the theme is grades. So I have no idea what that means, but that's the glory of The Narrators. You go and you have no idea, and it's just a pay what you can kind of thing, and always a lot of fun there out at Buntport.
Absolutely, yeah. They're definitely behind, though. I think they haven't released a podcast in over a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of preserves the integrity of the live show. It makes it more important to go out, I suppose.
Yep.
My next headliner is a festival that's taking place over at the Creepatorium in South Denver, August 22nd through 24th. And it is a one-of-a-kind event produced by Consensual Circus and Alabastard Productions. It is a celebration of the unconventional and bizarre, all in the world of burlesque. Basically, they are kind of billing this as anything that's too weird for the other stages ends up in this festival. So it's dedicated to performers who embrace the creepy, weird, horrifying, and just plain odd.
All right. Well, the Creepatorium is a good place for that. Be curious to know what they've got coming up there around Halloween season this year. My next headliner is it's kind of more of like a work in progress. It's called The Great Divide at the Breckenridge Backstage Theater. It's this weekend, August 21st through 24th. So this is a new folk-inspired original musical. It's kind of like the early Colorado spirit and kind of details some of the rise of Breckenridge, which is a really, really colorful history that, of course, I knew a lot about when I lived up there. Really fascinating history there, the gold mines, the long winters, and it's cool because it was written by Brandon Smith, who's been the creative producer there for the last few years. So he writes and directs. So if you happen to be up looking at doing some hiking in the Breckenridge, or even if you're just going there to see this, you want to check out A Great Divide at the Backstage Theater there on Rich Street in Breckenridge.
Cool. My next pick is a one-day event happening at the Ellie Calkins Opera House in Denver on August 23rd. It's the Screw Tape Letters. This is an adaptation of C.S. Lewis's satirical story that follows Screwtape, who is a senior tempter in hell, as he schemes to capture the soul of an unsuspecting human on Earth and reveals spiritual warfare in order to capture that soul. So it's interesting that this performance is being done in the Ellie Calkins Opera House itself, which is
Yeah.
fairly big venue, uh, which is a bit of an understatement. But yeah, it sounds like a really cool, it looks like a very cool, visually interesting performance from the photos that I've seen of it. And so if you are at all interested in checking this out, it's here for just one day. So get those tickets.
Yeah. Wow. All right, my next one, going from a brand new production at the Backstage Theater at Upstart Crow, is doing something that first debuted in 431 BC. That is Medea. So this is a story from ancient Greece. It's a revenge story. It's got King Creon, his daughter, and it's a Euripides play that I have never seen. And it's like, I don't know if I'd love to get out and see this if I can get to it, because it's certainly stood the test of time. People are still doing it. That's if you're Euripides lying there in your grave, you're thinking, wow, man, I never thought I'd go this far.
That's funny. Yeah, probably not. Yeah. It was written was this written for a contest and whatnot?
um, yeah, it was the City Dionysia Festival in Athens. So yeah, I mean, it was like the Fringe Festival of the day. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a funny way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add my last one in here because it's also from Upstart Crow. It's interesting. They're because they were saying is Medea's so heavy, they want to do something funny along the way. So they're doing something called, this is the title of all titles, A Most Pleasant Comedy of Musidorus, the King's Son of Valencia, and Amadine, the King's Daughter of Aragon, with the merry conceits of Mouse. It's a short, funny play that was apparently popular in 16th and 17th century England that they're kind of mixing in there along with Medea.
Interesting. Short, funny play, long, hard to say title.
Yeah, title's longer than the play itself.
That's fun. Well, my final headliner for this week is the world premiere of a new musical, The Legend of Anne Bonny. It's
Yeah.
being produced by Two Cent Lion and Shifted Lens Theater Company at the People's Building in Aurora, August 23rd through September 6th. I got to sit in on a rehearsal. I chatted a little bit about that on a previous podcast episode. This is just a queer pirate musical. It's got kind of folk-inspired music. The creators describe it as kind of a mashup between Anastasia and Hadestown in terms of the kind of musical sound of the piece. And it's based on real historical events that have just been brought to life. So it's always interesting to see a world premiere. We will see if it sinks or swims.
Yeah, they've had a little few ups and downs with the last few shows from Two Cent Lion, so we'll see how they do with this one.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for our headliners this week. Now we are going to throw it to Alex's conversation with Brian Mallgrave.
All right, we are here today with Brian Mallgrave, a scenic designer whose work you have probably seen in just any number of productions in Colorado over the past, how long have you been working in Colorado, Brian?
Oh, man, I think I've been here since year 2000.
Okay, so over the last quarter of a century, have you ever counted up how many sets you've designed?
I did at one point, and I'm past that. So I think it was like 200.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I was just looking at so I know you're doing you do a lot of work at the Arvada Center, of course, and you have the Mousetrap coming up. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I mean, you've done Clybourne Park, Noises Off, Natasha Pierre, and a Great Comet of 1812, which is a really very different kind of set, and the kids show. You're with Frog and Toad, Sylvia. I know you've done a few for Platte Valley Theater Arts recently. Did you do Bridges?
I didn't, no.
Okay, but you did Cabaret.
Yeah, Cabaret and the Cottage.
The Cottage.
Yes, Kelly is so lovely to work with that whenever I've got a good opportunity to jump in and work with her, it's always just a great experience. So I like to contribute whenever I can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, suffice to say that you've done an awful lot of sets here in Colorado. So, this is part of our sort of ongoing or occasional series of behind the scenes where we talk to the people that aren't on stage or directing. So, I want to ask you a little bit about the craft. I mean, how do you approach translating a script's world into a physical design? Like, can you talk a little bit about your process, how it starts?
Absolutely. It's a great question too. I think I'm really fortunate because a lot of my work is super original, and a lot of the people I work with kind of encourage that, just so that we aren't ever kind of taking intellectual property from somebody else, and so that everything can really be its own in terms of helping to tell the story. So I guess what I would say is first and foremost, I always get into the script a couple times, maybe like four times overall, just so I don't really miss anything. And then I try to stay far, far away from anything else that's being produced that's similar, so that I can kind of start sketching and creating what I can based on the space we're working in and based on just some preliminary conversations that I have with the director.
Uh-huh. And I would imagine, depending on the director, it can range from, very meticulous, here's exactly how I want it, to just figure it out for me, please. Is that
Absolutely, it
kind of a
runs the
range?
gamut. Yeah, and some
Yeah.
directors are more tech savvy than others, which is great. Both are great, just because it's kind of different and a lot of variety to work with. But yeah, some people come in with kind of a preconceived idea about how they want to tell the story from a physical perspective, and then other people are kind of more open, and then I'll start bringing in information and in terms of sketches and ideas, and usually that's where that kind of director will blossom more and kind of support what I'm doing there.
Right. So there's a management there with the director's vision versus your own creative instincts. So how does a collaboration evolve? And I'm sure there's sometimes where, like, the reality hits the wall and it's like, look, you can't do this unless you have another 10 grand or something like that.
Absolutely, and the director is always the head of the ship and the person that I try to appease, in terms of helping to give them the resources I think they're looking for, and helping them to tell the story in the best way they possibly can. But there are lots of questions. There's lots of input. There's lots of times where my experience might come in a little more handy. Whereas if we're working, like, say, on the Arvada Center main stage and working with some of the complications that exist around that setup, that I can kind of listen to what their needs are, but also offer some knowledge in terms of, well, sometimes that doesn't work so well because of the way the lights are set up. And so, is there something that I can do to help bring that idea to fruition, maybe in more of a compromise kind of way?
Uh-huh. So I would imagine that in alongside the director, the lighting director is probably the person you probably work closest with on the tech side of things.
Absolutely. Getting ready to take on Frozen at the Arvada Center, and that one in particular is so light heavy because of all of the magical kind of special
Right.
effects and tricks that are interlaced throughout everything. So I just had a meeting with John Dunkel. Uh, uh, Outside of the regular production team, so that we could really just hammer out some fine details to help us both get on the same page.
Uh-huh. So, do you run into, like, I mean, I'm sure you run into, like, technical constraints, size constraints, depending on the theater, but what are some of the biggest ones that you have to, like, kind of, wrestle with?
Absolutely and totally, it's the budget.
Of course,
So,
yeah.
but it also kind of propels me to get a little bit more creative in terms of how we can problem solve some elements. But yeah, budget is always first and foremost, and always much more constricting. And if we're working in a place that's kind of a smaller organization, of course, they don't have as many resources, not only with budget, but in terms of maybe mechanics or other elements to kind of elevate a design. So it's all about working with the resources and then being able to kind of create our own special event.
Sure. So if you without naming any names, like what's the range of dollars that like between like a smaller theater production and a big one? I mean, how much can you spend on a set
Oh,
other than like, you know,
it
as much
varies
as you want?
varies so
Yeah.
much. And sometimes, the more difficult budgets we work with, the more creative we get. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, the more interesting the design can become. But it would range anywhere from, I'd say, I'm still working on budgets that are like, I'd say 3,000 to maybe 30,000. Just in terms
Uh-huh.
of like materials and what people can do with labor and just kind of mixing it all up and giving kind of a final number of what to work with, but it's all over the place.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was just wondering, like, just kind of a range, but so I've seen some of your hand drawings, of sets. But do you also use? I mean, has there been some technology updates in the world of scenic design, like CAD design, or I don't know, things that you use on a computer to work
Absolutely. I'm
things out?
I'm still really computer savvy, but I found that when I'm working, the way that I work is a little bit more traditional. And through the years, working with different companies, when people find that my skill set is more hand drawn focused, people start to get a little more excited about it and really think of it more as art. And so sometimes that's actually gotten me different projects that have been really wonderful to take on. But even nowadays, working with things like just kind of creating different environments, even to springboard from. I use AI. I use all kinds of tools that get me in to sort of even give me a basis or a grounding from where to go from there. But I don't think I'm ever going to really let go of the hands-on part of what I do because from a technical standpoint, it really helps me understand every exact inch of everything on stage and what's going to happen with it, even how it's trimmed with casing or baseboard or something like that. But also, it just makes me feel so much more a part of the process from an artistic perspective. I think I did about 2 years in Vectorworks, just sharing drafting information with theater companies, and I would come to find so much more they would prefer the hand drawn stuff because it has the ability to get so much more personalized and detailed that people, like I said, started to actually get more excited about me doing that. So I just kind of kept doing it.
Right. So, when you say, hands-on, do you, stay around for the whole construction process of a set? Are you there for all of
So
that, or?
it's always different depending on the experience we're working in. So a lot of the times, some of the smaller theater companies around in the community don't necessarily have resources to be able to have others kind of be a supportive set of eyes. While the set's being put together or while things are happening with dressing. And so, in those particular circumstances, I tend to be around a lot more just to help out with those kinds of things and also be a resource because, if I put my name on something, I definitely want it to look its best. And then I also want to go through the process with the entire artistic team so that I feel like my contribution has really helped. To tell the story. At larger facilities, we often have additional helpers with those kinds of elements. So my position's kind of strange at the Arvada Center. I also run the prop shop. So I'll be able to have some other coworkers go in and take a look at some of the techs while I'm doing some work with the prop personnel. And then like I can jump in a little bit later. But like I said, that's a completely different situation from like a smaller organization.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that it's all over the place. And following from that, I was going to ask you if you had any advice for, say, some little theater, and somebody's like, "Hey, you know how to swing a hammer? Can you make a set?" And it's like, "Well, who's going to design it?" It's like, "You are." Um, what would you tell that person if they said, "Brian, please help me. How do I start? Are there tools that they can use to help?"
Absolutely. So what I think had really helped me, I was fortunate. I had a lot of experience as an actor being on stage, like right next to the set and all of the other elements that come into play. I was really able to kind of look at that stuff close up and from a faraway perspective. But I
Hmm.
think that experience just helped me to learn, what general pathways are like that are comfortable for an actor, and just general setups with like perspective and space. So I think that really helped me. What I guess I'm getting at is the more experience that you have in all different facets of something that's such a big collaborative art form like theater, I think the better off people are in terms of just being able to offer more, and with resources and knowledge and abilities, and then also everything is based on what we see in theater. So it's just so wonderful and great to never stop learning and to keep seeing as much theater as you possibly can. That really helped me to learn different methods and styles, and just kind of hone in on my abilities and be able to make things more original from my own standpoint.
Uh-huh. So, can I ask a little bit how you did get started? So you said you were acting. Did you take like, I don't know, interior design classes in school or anything like that, or just kind of learn as you go?
Actually, I was really fortunate because I went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and it took me about 6 years to get through the program, and it's because I was working at the same time as going to school, um, and it helped me to I think take my time a little bit more with some of the extracurricular classes that we took. So I started taking lots of design courses on the side of my acting courses, and so there were lots of independent study courses. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I took my time a little bit more with my education, and that afforded me the ability to take some extra classes on top of what I was required to take, because I started to find that I was really intrigued by the design element and how that rooted everything else, in terms of theater. So I was just fortunate in that I had those experiences and really just loved it. I loved every minute of it. I didn't ever think that that's what I would be doing kind of officially, as being a scenic designer. I
Right.
was going to be an actor. And I did so for about 12 years, and then opened up my portfolio one day. It was just like, I really enjoyed doing this stuff. I would like to see what happened if I started sending my resume and this portfolio from school out into the community. And I just happened to get some bites and people were interested. And then it just kind of snowballed, and it made me uh, super comfortable with that element of theater, even more so than acting. Always loved acting, but this is kind of a different level of stress from like a different standpoint. And so I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge a little bit more.
Right, sure. You've got a hard deadline that you've got to hit, and a pretty strict budget parameters and things like that. So, um, going back to what you said earlier, when you're talking about the beginning of your process, you said that you want to make sure that you're not doing anything that anybody else has done. Does that mean you research and try and find photos of other sets from these shows, or
No, it's the
because yeah,
contrary. So I don't want to
that's what
see
I was gonna say. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't wanna see anything, and it's funny even, hitting on Frozen again, I guess I'm talking about that because 'cause I'm kinda working on it right now. Everybody's seen, like, the Disney Plus version or West End version or some other kind of Broadway version or something, in person or what have you, and I've stayed far away from all of that because I just, I don't I don't want to mimic anybody else's work, but actually with Disney, you have to get, heavy duty approval prior, to being allowed to do a scenic design for them. And in order to do that, nothing can look like anything they've produced before, but they still want it to have kind of a flavor of what people's expectations are. So, that in particular is why I stayed away from everything before drawings for Frozen.
okay. So yeah, I do the same thing with theater reviews, but I will say that I will occasionally, after I've finished a review, look at some other reviews to just see, and like, am I crazy or did I, see that? Do you ever look at some sets after you're done so they don't spoil
Absolutely.
your?
Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, "Oh, wow, that was a really interesting take. That was very different than mine," or it's just interesting to see other people's work and how they're interpreting some of that stuff. But again, that's how, you just continue to learn and you continue to develop and you continue to like get a little bit more dimensional about the way you think about that kind of stuff. So it's all helpful.
Right, right. So, I was trying to think of some of the bigger, more elaborate sets of yours that I've seen recently. And I know Beauty and the Beast was a big one at the Arvada Center. And Natasha and Pierre was a very interesting set because it had that cabaret sort of vibe to it. But what are some of the like more challenging sets that you've done in recent years that you can think of?
Oh gosh, I would say you hit the nail on the head. Beauty and the Beast is extremely large musical, and working in a facility like the main stage at the Arvada Center, even though it's kind of a big stage, there's not really much of a backstage, and so you start to have to get really creative in terms of solving some of the backstage problems that can exist with something like that, yet still have the audience see everything from the front as though it's just this magical product. So that was particularly difficult just because of how many scenes there are. Also with the newer shows. This is Rock of Ages at Pace Center, which
Uh-huh.
with shows of that nature. They're really riding off of a movie, more of a kind of a movie cinematic standpoint where there might be 80 scenes. And so those things are always challenging because of the budget and also because you don't really want to skimp out on anything that really gives a flavor of where location is or what we're trying to portray in terms of the story. So I end up getting really pretty creative with under those circumstances, which is always really challenging, but always super fun for me too. Natasha and Pierre, what a wonderful opportunity to work on that. That I think was probably one of the biggest designs that I've ever worked on. I felt like the biggest compliment was I heard that people thought that the theater actually looked like that already
Uh-huh.
before the design. So I thought that was actually a really, really huge compliment. But that space and that particular show was difficult because we had to work all around all of the dimensionality of everything since it was so immersive. So it was almost like designing the backstage along with everything people saw and then knowing that they were going to see the backs of things from certain angles of chairs too. So it just seemed like it was a completely full interior design for that particular show.
Right, right. Yeah, another one I was thinking of was um, Cinderella at Arvada Center. That was another.
Cinderella was really cool. I thought that was fun
Yeah.
because, yeah, it requires so much in terms of just like even scenic elements. And so, not necessarily to save money as a first priority, although the budget was definitely an issue. But that was one of the reasons why we put like a spin on the carriage and the pumpkin when it turned into the carriage, and then started to create more of a 1920s feel out of the show that was sort of intermingled with some modern elements as well. The director's input for a lot of that show was he really enjoyed I guess the old kind of feel that was created for the Wednesday series, but still yet it's like
Huh.
modern. And so we were kind of riding off of that vein to create our own look for things.
Hmm. That's great. One of the questions I was to ask you when you think about just all of the repurposing stuff and like the sets can be like a big source of uh, waste if not handled properly. So what goes into like thinking about what can I reuse and how do I ensure when this set goes down that it'll be somehow have a second life or at least the usable parts?
Well, we're lucky at Arvada because I think they have such a recognition when they're doing more of the big musicals that sometimes will give away the sets to high schools that are producing the same musicals whenever that's a possibility. Also, because of the lengths of the run for stuff at the Arvada Center, we often build things out of steel, out of a steel structure or base. And so that is always recyclable and melded down into, becoming another piece of steel. So we're able to contribute in good ways to the environment from that perspective. But overall, it is not the greenest industry. And,
Yeah,
which sometimes isn't the best feeling. But I think also we do continue to build up our stock and our inventory and our props and our furniture pieces, and then bits and pieces of scenic elements that we know we can definitely reuse. And we try to be as conscious of that environmentally as we possibly can be.
right. Yeah, it certainly helps if you've got the room to store some of the stuff, which
Absolutely.
not many theaters have. So, well, I want to talk about a couple of these upcoming shows. We've touched on them first. I know you're working on Frozen, which opens at November 21st, so you're definitely way out ahead of it. I'm guessing Mousetrap is close to done. It's under construction now. I assume this show starts September 5th.
It is. It's about 75% built, I'd say.
And can you tell us a little bit about this set? What can people expect to see
I
when they walk in the door?
And so this is not my first Mousetrap, and
Okay.
my first one was actually at the Arvada Center. I want to say, if I'm correct, I want to say it was like 2013, something like that, and it was actually created in the black box. And so absolutely love the show. I love murder mysteries and anything that's even kind of horror related. I always get kind of excited about. And so when we did it the first time, it was, I think, a lot more along the lines of what people expected, where it was very much an interior with Tudor architecture and wooden paneling and suits of armor and stuff of that nature. So this time, being that it's the 50th anniversary of the Arvada Center, we wanted to kind of celebrate. I know a lot of the shows were picked off of this reasoning too, but we wanted to just kind of celebrate the 50th year. And so I think that gave us a little bit of license to be a little bit more grand and creative with what we were doing with the set for Mousetrap. So like I said, I love horror movies. I've always been a horror fan. And one of my favorite horror movies is The Shining. And not completely related to the Mousetrap, but knowing that all of these folks are stuck in this manor house in this huge snowstorm, and that's why they are all forced to be in the situation, it just reminded me a little bit of The Shining. And so I know The Shining had taken place in a couple different locations all over the U.S., but the one that was the interior shot was the Awani Hotel in California, which was also created in the 20s. And so I just started thinking about that. I'm like, that would really give us a different look, because even looking at that design of that lobby interior, it's very grand, yet it still feels really like kind of isolating and like it's entrapping everyone in that circumstance because of the snowstorm and everything that's happening outside. But also this really intricate, interesting trim work and detail work that's sort of like a Spanish revival sort of feel. And I wouldn't want to necessarily put Spanish revival into Mousetrap, but if you start looking at elements, like stuff really speaks to each other in terms of like regions and different ways or styles in which things are created. So if you really look at it, a lot of the Spanish revival style is kind of related to kind of a Tudor style. And so I just looked at different elements like that. And then I looked at, what if this manor house in England was more of a worldly feel and more of a worldly idea. So like the lobby is very American from that hotel. And there's some American history that they play with in decor. And so of course I didn't want to incorporate that into the English manor, but the ideas of the stucco walls, the really heavy beams, the heavy woodwork that surrounds everything just kind of got more intriguing. So I just kind of showed a couple pictures to the director, Lynn Collins, for Mousetrap. She got excited about it too, just because it was kind of different. And so as soon as I got that approval, I just kind of went for it. And so Mousetrap is really one of those unique shows where everything is scripted. All of the stage directions and where the locations are all scripted. A lot of times I really don't pay a lot of attention to that, as long as I'm still able to kind of get the essence of the script and what we need in terms of telling the story. But for something like Mousetrap, I found, if you kind of veer too far from that, you can kind of mess up some timing with what's happening with some of the mystery in and around the rooms. So in keeping all of that, the exact foundation, then I was able to kind of take the walls and sort of play around with some more, I guess, different kind of an idea. So just to give you an example, working with the 20s as thinking it like the manor was created in the 20s, but we're still set up in the 1950s in the show. With the manor in particular, I used a bunch of 20s elements. Like there's wallpaper in sets that are made of chinoiserie design, which is, kind of an imitation of some Asian print that Europe was really excited about during the time in the 20s. And then some of those prints that I was able to pull for the wallpaper have birds that are kind of praying in the wallpaper print. And so for me, that was kind of a cool connection, because it also made it seem like the birds are sort of preying on the mice in the show, or the
Uh-huh.
representation of the mice in the show. And then I started to look at a lot of different design elements from the 20s, and found a lot of them were very kind of grid-like, which was sort of like a cage. And so that helped me to create a lot of trim work and a lot of door panels and window work and stuff that also represented that. So there's a lot of that in the show. A lot of times people don't really grasp that idea right away when they're looking at the set, but I think subliminally there might be some kind of message there that really helps and
Hmm.
supports that kind of stuff. So it's always part of the fun of putting those little elements into a set design like this one.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. When you talk about that kind of wallpaper, is that something you can buy online? You have to make it somehow or
Oh,
paint it or?
absolutely. So, and a lot of people will approach that stuff differently. Like some people are more apt to have a scenic artist recreate that. For me, I feel like with this particular show, which is very, very different than the way we're approaching Frozen, this particular show is super realistic. So if I go in and look at wallpaper, I feel like we're not going to be able to recreate as perfectly the wallpaper design that we're going for. So I tend to actually pick the wallpaper. So we did purchase the wallpaper for this particular setup. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So switching gears to, yeah, a completely different show that you're working on, Frozen. What are the challenges there?
I think it's pretty much using every trick in the book
Yeah.
for this show, just because of the way it's set up. It is a wonderful story. I always say that it's sort of Disney's version of Wicked, but it
Hmm.
is a wonderful story. But anything Disney oriented, like Beauty and the Beast or other shows of that nature, are completely reliant on spectacle. So that always kind of comes first and foremost. For this in particular, I feel like Frozen is very modern. And even though it takes place in 1840s, like Nordic territory, fantastical Nordic territory, it does give us a lot of license to play with the idea of the magic and the things that are happening throughout. So we are really using a lot of modern resources with it, which is super cool. So we have lots of light elements that are intertwined all throughout the scenic design. And then we're heavily reliant on a lot of projection, not only from the back of the theater to help us create some of our backdrops, but also from the front to help supplement a lot of the magic and a lot of the snow elements that are happening. So that, in conjunction with a lot of specialty light instruments and combining all of that together, is really making up kind of the foundation of what should be a pretty strong technical show, I think.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that's just a really fun one to work on. But that made me think projections. That's a big newer thing that since those have gotten so much, that technology has gotten so much better and more affordable. What's your take? And I think sometimes Tony's particularly critical of projections. We think, if they're not used properly. What's your take on how to use them
I
the right
have to
way?
be honest, in this day and age, if you don't have the proper equipment to be able to produce a good look and to be able to work with some of the challenges that you have when you're using projections, like if your stage light is too bright, it really does wash them out. I feel like they can be kind of a I don't want to say they're a cop out, but they're just an easier way to deal with stuff sometimes, just because
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to create a two-dimensional, look from projection equipment and a screen than it is to create more of the tangible three-dimensional stuff. However, in this particular circumstance, it's going to work so well with what we're doing and be so cohesive. And so, with me being so hand drafting heavy and drawing heavy, I'm actually drawing most of the projections, most of the backgrounds myself, and then they're
Uh-huh.
being given over to the projectionist who's able to work some really incredible magic with all of them and add color and add cohesion, and then animate them and be able to fully support what we're doing with the hand drafted set design. So I feel like in this case, not only is it necessary because of all of the magical elements that people are really going to expect to happen, but it's a wonderful addition to the basis for the scenic design overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, designs that really successfully incorporate projections with the practical parts of the set, that's a challenge, but when it's done right, it can really be impactful. And I was thinking, I saw the Cirque du Soleil show that's up right now, has this enormous cube set piece that they're able to project onto, but it also has all these moving parts. It's real. If you get a chance, you might be interested to see that. It's really cool how they did it. But yeah, it's just like kind of a new frontier in a way that, it's like AI. You got to be careful how you use it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's its own art form, and so it's just another kind of dimension where everybody really has to be on the same page and be able to coordinate all of it together. So it's really cohesive and makes a great statement in terms of what we're ultimately doing, which is supporting the story.
Absolutely. Well, I know you have your hands full with Mousetrap and then Frozen coming up. What's next after that?
So, actually, in between, this is a wonderful project. I'm so excited about it. We're doing Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill.
Oh yeah.
And talk about another kind of very different situation. We're kind of doing a mini immersion in the black box at this point, and we're creating a small bar setup there with a three-piece band, and then the woman playing Billy, and then all of the surrounding tables. It's a smaller setup, so we have about 8 tables around the stage for the more immersive part, and then the rest of the audience seating is more like spectator. But what a fantastic script! When I'd never seen it before. When I first heard we were doing it, I was so I love Billie Holiday's music, and I love jazz, and so I was really excited about that. But then once I actually read the script, I was like, this is completely different than anything I thought it was going to be. It's very dark and it's very serious, and not only does it celebrate the highlights and the wonder and incredible journey of Billie Holiday's life, but it also goes into pretty dark places, and it's very realistic. And so that particular take on that design is also very, very detailed. And it's not only because it's a smaller, more intimate space, but I think the way that we're going to be able to help transition some of those moments of more of the sad elements going into, like, when she starts singing and it is reminiscent of kind of her glory days. We're able to transport that through lighting and through some of the things we're doing with the set that will support that stuff too. So it's really, really cool. Cool show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know I read about the end of her. She kind of lost, fell out of favor or whatever, and I think she had a lot of trouble with drugs and alcohol,
Yes.
and so she was kind of at the bottom of the barrel, but she still kept performing. And so this is a seedy bar in Philadelphia where she's doing one of her last shows. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really, 'cause really well written. It's just beautiful.
All right. Well, Brian Mallgrave, thanks so much for taking the time to talk about scenic design with us here at OnStage Colorado. We're fascinated by all aspects of theater, but this is one of the really cool ones, and of course the most visible, other than the actors themselves.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, best of luck breaking. Do you say break legs to scenic designers?
Absolutely.
So.
Break a window.
Break legs.
Break a door. Break legs.
Break legs. Just don't break any set pieces for these next 3 shows. All right, Ryan. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Always great to hear from Brian. I'm so glad he had some time to stop by and chat with you on the pod.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. I felt very honored that he was able to spare some time to talk to him. He's very, very gracious with his time, of course, and a lot of fun talking to him.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our show for this week. Alex, what's on the pod next week, or what's not on the pod next week?
Yeah, I think we're going to take next week off, but after that, I think we'll have an interview with sound designer Jason Ducat just to talk about the craft of sound design, and we'll have some other things to talk about, I'm sure. Just don't look for us next week. We're gonna be I don't know, at the beach, at the bar, or somewhere.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Anything coming up on the site soon that folks should be on the lookout for?
Some of the shows coming up that we'll be covering, we're starting to get into September already. We'll have, I was going to get out and see The Legend of Anne Bonny that you were just talking about. There's a show at Springs Ensemble Theater Company that April's going to be at called The Shark is Broken. It's got, I believe it's interesting. It's got something to do with the making of Jaws, and it actually has Robert Shaw's son or grandson involved in that project. So that's going to be interesting. And then we've got some other things like Mousetrap at Avada Center is coming up. Eureka Day at Curious. Some of the other shows that are kicking off this fall's theater season. So lots of fun stuff coming up on the site.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe our next episode of the pod might need to be a fall theater roundup.
Maybe, yeah.
Time to kind of curate all the madness.
Good idea.
Well, if you want to stay up to date on all that's going on in theaters across the state, the best way to do that is by subscribing to the OnStage Colorado newsletter, which comes out pretty much every week on Thursday. And then rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast so that it goes right to your feed right when it comes out.
Right. I know. There's always thousands of fans waiting for it to come out on usually Tuesday mornings. We're running a little late today. But anyway, well, thanks for listening. That's all for this week. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.